everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. For come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And welcome to a jam-packed weekly recap. For the first time in quite a while, we actually have new commits to talk about, as well as the catsketball teams and soccer and volleycats. But before we get into any of that stuff, we do want to thank the sponsors of today's episode, and that is Greg, Arthur, and Grandma.
Thank you, Grandma.
And if you want to support the show financially and have your name read out at the beginning of every single episode, please be sure to check out both the supporters link in our podcast and Twitter bios. But let's just dive straight into the new commits for the Kansas State Wildcats. And K-State is on the board with the 2026 class, but we do want to start with the 2025 class, and that is a new commit from Nebraska, of all places, and someone that we've known has basically been committed for the past, 2 months, somewhere in there.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, we've known Darian Whitaker has been not committed, but committed for the past 2 months. And he's a 2025 guy who, even ever since I first saw his film, once I knew that he was going to commit, I'm like, okay, yeah, this guy's probably sliding into my top five, like definitely my top seven. My top five is very, very likely for my favorite recruits for this upcoming class.
Yeah, he's a very easy to like prospect when it comes to just watching his highlight tape, because there's some prospects that do things really well, but it's more subtle, it's more technical. Darian Whitaker, you can just watch and you know that he's really good, and it's very easy. I mean, anybody could watch his film and be able to identify what an incredible athlete he is. He's athletic enough that I've seen people project him from being a defensive end. I've seen some people say that he could be an in-the-box safety, and I think his home will almost certainly be either at Sam linebacker or defensive end. I think he fits his best comp is definitely Toby Osunsami in terms of his current skill set and kind of how he projects to K-State, but he's hyper athletic and is used in a variety of ways at the high school level, and he'll be I think a really great asset for the K-State defense. However we end up using him, whether he puts on weight and stays at linebacker, or if he is able to put on even more weight and keep his speed and strength and end up as an edge rusher or maybe somewhere in between. I think there's a lot of possibilities for Darian Whitaker, and it's all possible because of just how freakishly athletic he is. And that comes with a really great frame as well at 6'4". On three, list him at 215 pounds, which I don't know how accurate that is or isn't. But, yeah, it's a really, really nice commitment for K-State. The only publication that has not graded him yet is On 3. 24/7 gives him an 87 3-star grade, sixth best in the state of Nebraska. On 3, I'd imagine, is going to be somewhere around there. 24/7 and On 3 tend to be of mostly like mind when it comes to these sorts of prospects. So I would not be too surprised at all to see Darian from at least the most respected recruiting publications end up as a high 3-star.
Yeah, and I really like what you said, that he comps pretty well to Toby. And I mean, the reason that it is a good comp, because both Toby and Darian are both just literal balls of freakish athletic clay. And I really do I can see him playing Sam linebacker, but I think that his ability to play more downhill and closer to the line of scrimmage, just with how aggressive, powerful, and fast he is, I do really like him as a sort of developmental defensive end. Because, and this is no disrespect to Toby, but I think that in terms of pure power, I think that Darian Whitaker is almost certainly the more powerful player. Toby is almost certainly faster, which is why I was always projecting Toby to be like a will linebacker. But I really like the Whitaker pickup just because he does have that athletic profile of, really strong, really fast defensive end. And I really think that if given time to sort of marinate, he could, he has the ceiling of an all Big 12 player. And I don't say that lightly because I don't think I've given that high of praise to a lot of guys. In fact, I think the only two guys that I've given that praise to in this class are Lincoln Cure, who's a 5-star, so duh, and then JoJo Scott, who I still haven't watched his senior film, but I will crash out if he's not a 4-star by the end of the year.
Yeah, JoJo Scott, he hasn't seen any ratings bumps in a while, which has been really weird to me. I was thinking about that as I was scrolling through our commitment list for this year, which Darren Whitaker, just by virtue of On3 not having graded him yet, is at the bottom of that list right now. I don't think that's going to last long because he is certainly not the worst prospect in this entire class. But regardless, it's a really big ad. I think at one point he was also committed to Northern Iowa as well, back over the
either Northern Iowa or Northern Illinois.
It was one of those two. Like I can't remember which one, but you're right. It is one of those two. And he decommitted pretty soon after getting a K-State offer. So yeah, it's been pretty much a lock. I think he just wanted to get down for his official visit first, and then he did that against KU and made it official not too long after. So I'm very, very happy with the addition.
Yeah. And so welcome to the family, Darian. But K-State also added a brand new piece and the first piece for the 2026 class. And that is a brand new corner by the name of Brandon Ford from Texas, who I don't think you and I had been really looking towards the 2026 class as of yet. And I mean, I think that's just because we don't tend to do that very often. We tend to focus on the recruiting class as it's happening right there. But Brandon Ford is an outside corner who's a borderline 4-star on some services. So getting this commit out of the way really early, Texas, a near 4-star corner, really sticky, really lanky kind of corner. And he is not this player. I want to point out he is not this player, but he plays very similarly to Julius Brents, where he is that sort of lanky, vertical kind of corner who is willing to stick his nose in it when it comes to the running game, which I will still always point out that I think it's hilarious that the big knock on Julius Brents coming out of Iowa was that he was a non-participant in the running game. But I really, really like the pickup of Brandon Ford just because I think that he is sort of the prototype for what a modern corner is, which is really funny because both of K-State's starting corners are not that at the moment.
Yeah, I was also really caught off guard by the Brandon Ford commitment. When I saw first cat signal and it said EMA 26, all of a sudden I was like, I have absolutely no idea this is going to be. Because the 26 really caught me off guard. And full disclosure, I didn't know who Brandon Ford was until I think the day that he committed. There was a recruiting story about him on On3, and he gave some of the most outwardly glowing and like indicative of a near commitment comments in that story that I've ever seen. And that's kind of what the article implied. Like, he seemed to really like K-State. He might commit soon. And not 12 hours later, he's already the first committed the 26 class. So I thought that was it's about as a open and shut case of recruitment that you will ever see in the year 2024, I think, particularly from the fan side. Obviously, it lasts a lot longer on the actual team side, but for us fans, we went from being introduced to him to having him in the class in less than a day, which
we hit the insta commit button.
Yeah, if only it were so easy for all of the other ones. But no, I really like Brandon Ford, and the Julius Brents comparison is both apt and ironic, I think, because you watch his film and he actually does have a lot of he does kind of have some similarities, I think, the way that he plays guys, and also I think that he seems to be at least a willing participant in run defense. So he has some similarities to Julius Brents, but he is like 4 inches shorter than Julius Brents. Granted, I was watching his sophomore year highlights, so that's the one big caveat with evaluating a guy a year ahead, even further ahead than we would for most other recruits, is that we're looking at sophomore year film. Most of these guys are getting junior and senior year film, and so like we're getting film from quite a while ago for Brandon Ford. And so he's getting significant playing time as a sophomore in the state of Texas. That means that he's really good at football. So I'm very, very happy with the addition. I'm glad that we're dipping back into Texas, and I'm glad that we're making what I think is a really solid first pickup. I mean, he's 63rd in the state of Texas, which, I mean, being 63rd in the state of Kansas would be pretty bad, but 63rd in the state of Texas.
I don't even think you're ranked at that point. I don't even think you're
no,
ranked
they don't.
in the 63rd.
Like the most I've ever seen ranked in a single class in Kansas, I think, is maybe in like the low 20s. So I like maybe 25 at most. But Texas, I mean, they're making top 100s, top 200s out there. But no, Ford, really good pickup. Plays physically. I think maybe the most interesting thing to me is that he seems to have plus instincts. He seems to have a good knack of knowing where the ball is going. He has at least a few highlights where he breaks off his zone, I think, a step faster than a lot of other corners his age would, and that gives him a major advantage.
Yeah, which all of those things are very, very good, and that's sophomore year tape, which like he's just so far advanced of what a lot of guys are at that age. So I do want to welcome Brandon Ford to the class. Welcome to the first class of the 2026 recruiting cycle. But now we can talk a little bit about men's and women's catsketball, which, this is their first. This is the first time that we've seen this team play together on the men, well, on both sides. But starting with the men's side, it was a 70-56 victory in favor of K-State, as if the score, matters much. But K-State did end up winning by 14. You want to see, I guess, a little bit more dominance, but it's an exhibition, and I'm not going to overreact to said exhibition. And I'll take the starters for this one because the starting lineup was quite interesting. Brandon Housen ends up logging 21 minutes, and all 14 of his shots were from three. He ends up going 5 for 14, getting 1 rebound, 2 fouls, 1 assist, 1 turnover, 1 steal, and 15 total points. Coleman Hawkins showed that once again, yes, he is more than capable of doing just about everything. 32 minutes, 3 of 7 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3, 5 of 6 on his free throws, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 turnover, 1 block, 2 steals, and 13 points. So he was quite literally a foul away from stuffing the stat sheet. One of the easiest things that he could have gotten. David Gasson ends up logging 21 minutes, 3 of 5 from the field, 0 of 1 from 3, 4 of 6 on his free throws, 9 rebounds, 3 fouls, 1 turnover, 1 block, 1 steal, 10 total points. CJ Jones picks up 32 minutes, 4 of 6 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3, 2 rebounds, 1 foul, 5 assists, 2 turnovers, 2 steals, 9 total points. And the last starter is Achor Achor, 2 of 4 from the field, 3 of 4 on his free throws, 4 boards, 3 fouls, 1 assist, 4 turnovers, not good, 1 block, 1 steal, 7 points, which of course means that he stuffed the stat sheet. So congratulations to Achor Achor for being the first men's basketball player to stuff the stat sheet on the season.
Yeah, that's a big start for him. Although it's unofficial, I suppose, at the exhibition, but he still will forever hold that honor. But out of the starters, I mean, obviously, I think Coleman Hawkins was the most impressive, but I think I was most happy with CJ Jones. I was a little surprised to see him get the nod at the point position. And he really played it quite well. And it's a little jarring, I think, because our first 2 years of the Jerome Tang era, we've been used to very diminutive point guards, and then you have C.J. Jones come in at 6'5", handling the ball. And it was particularly surprising to see him over Doug McDaniel, who supposedly is in the dughouse, but he was not so much in the dughouse as to not play. So we still saw him plenty, but CJ Jones got the starting nod, and I was reasonably impressed with how he played, honestly. I thought that he facilitated the offense pretty well, and he seemed pretty comfortable running the offense as well, which was a little bit of a surprise. Then also, we didn't see Max Jones in this matchup either. He supposedly had a walking boot, but it didn't sound like it was serious. I really hope so, because K-State and walking boots is a long tradition. Hopefully,
Tradition unlike
we'll
any
see
other.
him. Yes, hopefully we'll see him once the regular season properly begins. But yeah, Coleman. I didn't talk about him much, but Coleman I thought was really great. Did a little bit of everything. Very reliable. Chor could have been better, but still, I was reasonably pleased with the flashes we saw.
Brandon Howson, 14 3-point. That man was shooting it. Like that man. And there was a time where he was not shooting it particularly well. He made like his first 2, and I think he missed his next 10. So
Yeah, he was very streaky in this game, but Brennan Hawson is doing exactly, I think, what we brought him in to do, which we need a guy that is just not going to be affected by like missing a couple. And Brendan Hawson's absolutely that guy. It's clear that the staff just gave him the all-out green light for this game. But even though 5 of 14, not great from 3, I am though pretty happy with the amount of open looks that he got, which is something that I thought that we kind of really struggled with at times last year, was creating shots for our shooters. But Brendan Hawson was able to get some spot up looks pretty consistently, but he also was able to, on a couple of occasions, create his own shot as well, which I was pretty pleased with too. So I think that's an encouraging sign for this men's basketball team.
yeah, I agree. Which I think that leads you into the bench players, of which there are really only 2 notable performances. One really good, one kind of really stinky.
Yeah. The good, we'll start with the good here, and that's Buddy Rich. He played 20 minutes, made 5 of his 7 field goals, took a 3 and missed it, and then a 1 of 2 at the free throw line. He added 4 rebounds with 1 foul and finished with 11 points. So really a pretty impressive stat line for Buddy Rich. His defense, I thought, was inconsistent, but overall improved from last year. Because last year that was really one of his biggest issues when he was on the floor, was he seemed to struggle with defensive discipline. But this year it seems as though he's at the very least closer to where we need him to be. And I was happy with his offense, but I think the question is, can he translate that to Division I competition? Because for a guy like Buddy, it's going to be really easy to beat up. No offense to Fort Hays State, to inferior competition. But I do think that still he did look a little bit better, a little bit more refined than last year. Threw down at least 1 dunk, I think. Was hoping for maybe another one, like another run out that we can use like in the pregame highlight footage. But I think we'll have to stick with last year's windmill for now. But I'll move on from Buddy Rich now into Doug McDaniel, who came off the bench. He played 29 minutes, so still played plenty, but only 1 of 8 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3, 3 of 4 at the free throw line. I think I had 4 rebounds, 2 fouls, did have a decent assist to turnover ratio, 4-1, and then added 2 steals, finished with 5 points. So he did some decent things when it didn't come to scoring, but scoring, this was a wildly inefficient day for McDaniel. 1 of 8 is just not good at all. And Jerome Tang was pretty outwardly spoken about that as well. Pretty much said he just needs Doug to be better. which we do need Doug to be better. Now, he did do some pretty encouraging things. He showed some really fantastic quickness, and on a few occasions was really able to facilitate quite well for others in the K-State offense. I can't remember if it was him that threw the lob to Ugo Onyenso that ended up not counting because of an illegal screen.
I don't remember either.
I was gonna
I
say,
think so.
I think it might have been him because the other name I was thinking was Hassan, but I think it was Hassan that got the illegal screen. But he threw just a absolutely perfect lob in between like three defenders that Onyenso hardly even had to move. When it came time to dunk it, his momentum pretty much just carried his arms from catching it into an immediate dunk. So the flashes were absolutely there with McDaniel. I think he maybe was trying to play himself out of the doghouse or the dughouse, if you will, and probably just pressed the issue a little bit too much. But it's an exhibition game where we were seeing tons and tons and tons of different lineups. So I don't know if we can draw any major conclusions really from this performance other than this definitely was not his best night, and we'll see better nights from him.
Yeah, and no one else scored, but Ugo Onyenso got 3 boards, 2 blocks, including one of those really funny blocks where you can just hear the smack.
Yeah, I remember that one, and I felt really bad for the Fort Hays guy there. But similar pace, I think, that he was on. Actually, a little quicker pace compared to last year, because I think they said on the broadcast he got a block about every 6 minutes. So 2 in 9 minutes, he's already on a pretty good pace. So a solid start for Onyenso.
Yeah. The only other thing that I think is really worth mentioning is Byfall ends up getting 3 offensive boards, which, damn, okay.
Yeah, and also learned that his name is pronounced By, not Bay. Which that surprised me, but we are course correcting here at the Alleycat World Headquarters to Byfall. I guess we can say that David Castillo did play. Just he looked like a freshman. He had a couple of bad turnovers and missed a couple threes. He'll figure it out, but definitely not ready yet.
Yeah, no, especially not this soon. I think, this is why you play exhibitions. I'm not saying that like he can't figure it out this year, but he's clearly not ready immediately.
Right.
But now we can talk about the team that had even higher expectations and then proceeded to blow said expectations in the exhibition out of the water, and that is K-State beating Washburn 89-36, which at some point you have to start saying that it's kind of bullying, but I don't think it was on purpose. I think it just kind of happened.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, because the first half was a little bit more competitive, I think, than K-State wanted. Jeff Mitty mentioned that they were surprised by Washburn pressing the entire game. They did not expect that. And so they hadn't practiced press break at all in preparation for the game. And they still had some turnovers early, but in the second half, they mostly settled down on that front. But otherwise, you really can't complain too much about this wide of a margin, other than I guess you could say it was a bit of a slow start. The second quarter was a bit of a trudge through mud. But I mean, you look at the third quarter, K-State outscoring Washburn 30-6 in that quarter, pretty effective, I would say.
One might say that is good for K-State. But Connor, you have the starters for this one, including basically an objectively perfect performance.
Yeah, we'll start with the woman of the hour, and that's Tamara Poindexter. She had a fantastic first performance as a Wildcat and really exceeded expectations that were already pretty high. She only played 16 minutes, but she went 5 of 5 from the field, including 2 of 2 from 3, 2 of 2 at the free throw line as well. So she got 14 points, did not grab a rebound, but had 1 assist, 1 turnover, 1 block, and 1 steal. So yeah, I think you put it well, Ace. So you can't ask for much better than that. So really, really pleased with that start from Poindexter. Further, Ziona Walker played 26 minutes, 2 of 5 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3, and she is starting over Briley Glenn, which I thought was interesting. Did I say that she went 6 of 8 from the free throw line?
No, you hadn't said that yet.
Okay, well she did that, and she had 5 rebounds. She did pick up 4 fouls and had 5 assists to 3 turnovers, added a block, finished with 11 points. Yoko Lee only played 11 minutes. Don't really,
Good.
yeah. We know what we have with Yoko Lee, but in those 11 minutes, she got 11 points, 5 of 7 from the field, 1 of 2 at the free throw stripe, 7 rebounds, a couple fouls, a turnover, and 2 steals. Serena Sundell, 20 minutes, I should say, 4 of 10 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3, missed both her free throws. 2 offensive rebounds, 3 assists, 1 turnover, 2 steals, and 9 points for her. And then Jalen Glenn only made 1 shot, and it was 1 of her 2 3-point attempts. And she had 2 rebounds, 2 fouls, 5 assists to 1 turnover, 2 steals, and 3 points. So a lot of steals there in the starting lineup. But which you'll notice will become a common theme. Yeah, there's 8 there among the starters because this K-State defense was causing some havoc, to put it mildly.
Yeah, that is a very mild way of putting it. But I think the Kennedy Taylor ends up, now that we're getting into the bench players, plays 16 minutes, 4 of 8 from the field, 2 of 3 on her free throw attempts, 5 rebounds, 2 fouls, 2 assists, 4 turnovers, 2 blocks, 4 steals for 10 total points. She was a 3-point make away from stuffing the stat sheet, which if Kennedy Taylor was the first one to stuff the stat sheet, you would not have had that on your bingo card if you said you did your line. But that is a really encouraging performance. She started a little bit slow whenever she first got in, but she really, really picked it up. And I think that's that's a really encouraging performance. And I would say that in a way I was encouraged by both of that. I'm just going to call them the Yoki subs. Both of the Yoki subs, I was really happy with how both of them performed. But next up is Taryn Sides, 15 minutes, 3 of 7 from the field. All of those were 3-point attempts, 4 rebounds, 3 fouls, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, 9 total points. Turnovers, not great, but it's exhibition. That's something she can get figured out. Plus press break that they hadn't worked on. So, c'est la vie. Riley Glenn plays 23 minutes, 4 of 9 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3, 3 rebounds for 8 total points. Gisela Sanchez probably had the toughest night of anyone from the scrimmage. And not everyone can have a perfect night, but she played 23 minutes, so she still played a lot of significant minutes and played some really, really good defense. But 2 of 8 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3, missed both of her free throws, did get 5 boards, 3 fouls, 7 assists, 6 turnovers, and 3 steals for 5 total points. So you'll take that stat line. With the only thing that I would sort of decrease on it would be minutes, and that's not me saying that don't play Gisela Sanchez, but that's me saying that that's really the only stat that doesn't look. That I don't know what I'm trying to say, but anyway, Liza, 17 minutes, 2 of 3 from the field, 1 of 2 on her free throws, 8 total boards, 1 foul, 2 assists, 1 turnover, 3 blocks for 5 total points. And then Amani Lester, who's the other Yoki sub, 13 minutes, 0 of 1 from the field, but 4 of 6 on her free throw attempts, 8 total boards, only 1 foul, 1 turnover, 1 block, 1 steal for 4 total points. Finley Onstat, the true freshman, ends up getting in for a minute to end the game. But I would say that of the bench performers, I walked away. There were 2 that I walked away really happy with. That's Kennedy Taylor and Eliza Maupin. 3 that I'm all right with. or three that I would qualify myself as, giving a nonchalant thumbs up, and that would be Taryn Sides, Briley Glenn, and Amani Lester, and then just an all right day for Gisela. So, I mean, I don't think you can complain too much about bullying a team 89-36 in an exhibition.
Yeah, I guess among those players, the one thing I wish that we could get back was Gisela did have 6 turnovers, which I thought was pretty high. But I do think that other than that, most everybody contributed, and Gisela contributed as well. I mean, 7 assists was really great too. Which, if you're gonna have a lot of turnovers, you may as well create a lot of assists too. But I think the biggest note that you can really I think draw from this game is the 31 turnovers forced against Washburn, turning the ball over 20 times, which K-State did. K-State turned the ball over 22 times, which is not good. But you can make it work when you force the other team to turn it over 31 times, which is just absolutely absurd.
Yeah, and that's 27 or 22 turnovers when you don't expect to see the press. So you hadn't worked on it. But I would qualify myself as whelmed with the men's basketball performance, and then very, very happy with the women's basketball performance.
Yeah, I think that's about where I would fall as well. The men's team was fine. I thought they had good moments. They had moments where they struggled. They looked like a team that has a lot of new faces. But I do think that that's a team that looks really talented. And the women's team, they did what we were hoping they would do, which was just thrash an inferior opponent and not have Yoki play that much. And we got to see some nice showcasing for Tamara Poindexter as well. And everybody seemed to be fairly confident too. Only players we didn't see are players that are out for the season with injury, with Alexis Hess and Michaela Parks. But everybody else, we got at least a minute.
Yep. Now we can go into the other sports, which is soccer and volleycats. Soccer lost 2-0 to KU. I don't want to talk about it, but the really only big news regarding so the soccer season's over. Figured that went without saying, but the big news coming from the soccer team is that Mike Dabini is stepping down for health reasons. So, as mean as we were to the soccer team, and we will continue to be to the soccer team, I do appreciate what Mike Dabini did, sort of getting the program started and helping to get it at least on, I don't want to say on its feet because that would imply walking, but he nurtured it to not immediately exploding every time they took the pitch, which, I mean, with a brand new soccer program, that is genuinely kind of impressive, especially when you're having to play at a Power 4 level. So as much as we talked down and have a history of talking down to the soccer team, and we do wish that the soccer team was better than it is and was, I feel like that's just natural part of being a fan. But I am very thankful for what Mike Dabini did for the K-State soccer program, and I truly wish him all the best with his health in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I think a good time to move on because the team peaked, I think, a couple of years ago when they made it to the postseason. This year, granted, they lost a lot due to injury. I think they were down 4 or 5 starters by the end of the year. But I think that's probably a good moment to bow out, I think. So kind of a disappointing end to that era, but I guess it does leave some excitement on the horizon because K-State soccer, for the most part, hasn't really been competitive for most of the last decade or so, but now you can really clean the slate, so to speak. So, I'm curious to see who we go after. I really don't know like the market for soccer coaches all that well. It's not like we have like standout alums coaching anywhere because we don't really have a lot of alums because we're a pretty young program.
New K-State head soccer coach Brooklyn Ents.
Might have to be. We may very well have to do that. But we need to make Lionel Messi say no first. But after that, then we can start dipping into all reliable.
Yeah, if I had to project what K-State gets, I would project probably a head coach at one of the G5 schools that are constantly on, like they're constantly performing well, but not well enough to make the tournament. And then failing to get that, we probably end up looking for not like the low level assistant, but like a mid-level assistant at a Power 4 who's reasonably successful. Those would be my two projections. So basically, known commodity that we might be able to peel to hope that they can get over the hill at K-State, or Mansfield approach.
I'm thinking we probably do the latter, honestly, because that's been the last two hires for K-State, I think, with Mansfield and Geffert for track. So I'd imagine our first instinct is going to be look to a successful program and see if they have a young assistant that really wants to be a head coach, and try and make them a decent offer and have them put together a decent staff, and just see what we can do with that.
Yeah. I mean, preferably in a perfect world, you want someone that has ties to Kansas City, but I don't want to say that it doesn't matter because it's soccer, because it does matter. I value all K-State sports. I don't value them the same way. I'm not going to lie to you, but I do value all of them.
I love all my children, but I do have favorites.
Absolutely. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the soccer news outside of Jasmine Brown making second team All Big 12, I believe.
Yeah, she did. I was a little surprised, honestly, to see any of our players make it. But Jasmine Brown is actually a legitimately pretty good soccer player. She was good last year too, so this isn't like a new phenomenon. But yeah, she ended up having a fairly decent season again, making second team All Conference. So good on her.
Now we can move on to the Volleycats, which, full disclosure, we are recording this before the West Virginia matchup because both of us have things to do tonight, and so we'll cover it next week. So we only really have the one matchup, and that is up against Iowa State, which K-State ends up winning in an absolute nail-biter from, this was a wire-to-wire close game. K-State ends up winning 3-2, winning the first, third, and fifth sets, 25-21, 25-23, and then 22-20. When you're getting into the fifth set and you have to do 22-20, that is ridiculous and also scary. But Iowa State picks up sets 2 and 4, 24-26, and then 23-25. So again, wire to wire, really, really close match. And I mean, the winner of this match, at least in terms of individual players, almost certainly has to be Aaliyah Carter with 32 kills and 3 aces. So Aaliyah Carter seems to, at least in this match, have her mojo back from the Aaliyah Carter of years past, where she was the primary offensive option.
Yeah, this was a fantastic match for Aaliyah Carter. Getting 32 kills is wildly impressive. And like you said, adding the aces, she had a couple of block assists and added 9 digs as well. So she was 1 dig off of a double-double as well. But really just incredible stuff from Aaliyah Carter. Though she's not the only Wildcat that was productive. Meg Brown had 12 kills on 27 attempts. Did have 3 service errors, but had 2 solo blocks and 5 block assists. So very active at the net defensively through an 8 digs. Izzy Shulshevsky, 5 kills on 10 attempts, 56 sets, 1 service ace, 3 block assists, and 14 digs. So that kind of core three for K-State doing a ton of work. Shaylee Myers added 13 kills. Simone Sims added 17 digs. Ella Larkin had 21 digs. Anaya Clinton, 7 kills on 29 attempts with 5 assists. So not the greatest day for Anaya Clinton. But then Brenna Schmidt continues to be very, very efficient in the middle. 7 kills on 10 attempts, and then threw in 2 solo blocks and 2 assisted blocks. Didn't have a block error, but still Brenna Schmidt's been really, really good down the stretch for K-State this year. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about it. Pretty much every match is a must-win at this point for K-State if you want any hope of making it to the postseason. What little hope remains, and this was a gritty win for the Wildcats over a tough Iowa State team on ESPN2 as well. So a linear television volleyball game. So really impressive stuff for the Volleycats going on the road in Ames and getting the season sweep of the Cyclones.
I have a plan, Connor. The plan is we put the women's volleyball team on linear television for every single match and then just let them win.
I think that's a great idea. I see no flaws as of yet. Unfortunately, all of our remaining games are on the plus, so we need to start implementing this in like 30 minutes. Timing, not only dating, but timing this episode.
Yeah. But yeah, you mentioned it best. Every single match after this is a must win, including West Virginia and the absolute gauntlet that we have to end the season. Do you have any? Yeah, it's not a great time. It's not a particularly easy time, at least.
Yeah, things are not getting any easier for the Volleycats. And in fact, they're only going to get more difficult. They have a stretch of, I think, 7 matches where I think 6 of them, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 of them are ranked. So that's just going to be an absolutely brutal way to end the year. But like we talked about a lot to begin the season, a lot of opportunities. And so we had a lot of times where we were actually playing those teams really close and just couldn't quite finish. But if you want to have any shot of making it to the postseason, which I don't know if that's even in the cards, but at least make them think about it and get some big wins.
That's the most important thing. Make them think about it. Also, the baseball schedule released today. The short thoughts of it. Non-con is really, really, really hard. Conference is actually a pretty good draw.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because I nearly forgot. But yeah, this is an extraordinarily difficult non-conference slate for Kansas State. I mean, their last year was already a fairly difficult ride in the non-conference, but this year they're starting with 11 straight road games, which you kind of have to a certain degree, just to let things warm up a little bit here in Manhattan. But I mean, they're getting Washington to begin. They get Coastal Carolina twice on those first 4 games because they're playing a series of games against 3 different opponents to begin their season. They have a one-off game with North Carolina, then a rematch down in Arlington with Arkansas. Follow that up with Michigan and then TCU, which that seems kind of strange that we're playing TCU out of conference. Although I guess that's just the Big 12 nowadays. Then we get LSU.
We don't play them in conference, so I guess it works out.
I guess that's true, actually. So at least it won't create any additional confusion. But then LSU, Sam Houston, Nebraska. Then you finally get back home. And then you have Creighton, William and Mary, Creighton again. But things start to let up a little bit once you hit conference play. Although you do have to travel down to Stillwater, face Oklahoma State, and that will not be easy. So keep that in the back of your mind. UCF home, that'll be nice to hopefully get revenge for last year. And KU on the road, that's going to be difficult too. And then this is also, I mean, with starting 11 straight road games, that's already tough no matter who you have. But you got to keep in mind this K-State baseball roster, there's a ton of turnover this past year. Now, there are some impressive pieces on this team. And some guys that I think really could gear up for some big seasons, but not going to be shocked at all if we have a very slow start to the year.
Especially given the non-con is brutal, because I think that if you were to measure it out, I would guess that over 60% of the non-con opponents, or 60% of the games, are teams that made the tournament last year, and a few of them were host sites. Like, I'm pretty sure Sam Houston was at least on the bubble. Northeastern, I think, was on the bubble and was one of the first teams out. Or did they make? Yeah, they were one of the first out.
I think so, yeah.
Coastal hosted. Arkansas hosted. We get to play TCU in a non-con game. We got RPI'd once and said we are never letting that happen again.
Pete, he took the message loud and clear, if nothing else, which going back 2 years now, thinking about when we got snubbed, we had all those statements that we put out about how we thought it was really stupid, which, like, I agree. I thought that team deserved to get in, but the only thing you can do at that point is, if they say they're going to change their mind, do things differently, that's great. But if not, then you just have to adapt to what is expected of you and then make them put you in anyways. And that's what Pete did last year, and it worked really well. Even though it felt like at times down the stretch it wasn't going to. K-State still figured it out, made it in, made a really memorable run. So I guess now he's doubling down on his difficult scheduling. I guess the lone benefit is we do not travel to get exploded by Tennessee or Clemson, which is nice. But yeah, it's going to be tough sledding for this Batcat squad to begin with. Although I'm still going to be tuning in as much as I can, because there's going to be a lot of new faces and young players that I want to be keeping eyes on. That their scrimmage against Clennon College, I think, from Texas. There's some guys that I thought really kind of flashed. Like AJ Vasco, I thought he flashed a bit in that scrimmage, and I'm excited to see what he can do. But we'll just have to wait and see. I'm curious where things go for this Batcat team, because I think it's going to be very up and down.
With a young team, it's almost certainly going to be. The piece I'm most excited for, and we'll touch on this when we do our Batcats preview at some point, but the piece I'm most excited for is Shintaro Inoue. Like that.
He looked super impressive at that scrimmage. He might have been the player I was most impressed with.
But that's a topic for another day. Connor, do you have any final notes before we sign off?
I like when we have more things to talk about in these recaps. So thank you, basketball, for getting here.
Thank you, basketball. Thank you, recruits. Thank you, baseball schedule.
Thank you, Grandma.
Thank you, Grandma. But thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're AggievilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdward00.
I am at Connor Baltazar, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out both the official supporters link and the merch store found in our podcast and Twitter bios. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.